Here, this is not the place for us as well. The phrase popped into my chest as her high and dry, with no shame, none at all. And what's worse is that it didn't come from someone else either. It came from the guy with the badge, the brighter the room, the smile, the more staff, the educated, by the second, and that he thought that I was a mistake at a party. I congelé for half a second, because I've heard a lot of things in life. I have a channel, I do me, I don't want to comment on being mean, and I've turned meme for the stupid, but then, that there was not internet, that he was alive. It was the people of the chic, it was real money, and it was a kind of contempt for what seems to have been passed down from generation to generation, just as if it were an inheritance. I'm looking forward to the launch of a venture called The Viewer Bella Vida. Beautiful name, isn't he? Those names are a promise of peace, order status, and to be perfect. Just what I was there out of curiosity, not by the desire to shine. I was there because I had a debt to me. That is, in a strange way, that room is full of marble, glass, and expensive perfume. Was built up on top of a place that I used to know it better than anyone else here. I breathed out slowly, as if I had a choice, to swallow the humiliation or to light a match in the middle of the fuel. It was at that moment that I looked around and saw something that gave me a chill at the nape of the neck. The two guards had already changed his position. It was not paranoia. It was routine. One was near the door, as those close to the output. On the other, it was close to the buffet table, like the one who prevents you from approaching. And in the face of the badge, with a tone of niceness was aggressive, he added, "The event is unique to you. The list is selected. I don't want confusion." Confusion. I almost laughed. Why, I thought to myself, if only you knew what it is, a confusion of the truth. I am the narrator of this story. I have a channel. I'll tell you true stories, the stories of the people they try to hide it. I have learned that there are two kinds of silence, the quiet of those who don't know, and the silence of those who know, and pretend that you don't. And in that room, in the silence, he had an owner. I felt all eyes on me, some of them with disgust, couple with a quill, some of the fun, and a few of fear. Afraid of what? I may be crazy, or do I have to be right? I took a step to the front, and on the face of the badge, he lifted up his hand, as if I were a dog, crossing a room in porcelain. And that's when I did something that changed the climate of the whole. I looked it right in the eye out of him, and I said, in a voice I didn't recognize it as mine, "I have to agree with you." He hangs up. I went on. "Here, this is not the place for us as well, but that's not the way you're thinking." I turned to his face. I saw a model's huge in the center of the room, an iprackle piece of heaven made of plastic and LED light. This right here, right on top of a white lie, and I can prove it to you. You can feel it when the air changes. It is not a figure of speech. The sound seems to decrease, the light will seem more strong, and the entire body you should understand that it is a serious thing just to get started. In the face of the badge, he tried to laugh, but the laugh came out broken. "The Lord, and I'm going to ask you what the Lord may be turned away." I couldn't get out. I had to get out. I just remembered what had brought me there. I was reminded of why I started my channel. I was reminded of the messages I get from people saying, "I've never had the courage to speak out. I thought that no one would believe it. I'm scared." I pulled my cell phone out of the pocket, not to shoot, even just to feel it in the hand, as a reminder that I was not alone. And I said, before I was cast out, "Answer me one question. Where is the original sketch is approved?" The hall is given an angle, as if the whole world's coming to an understanding that the question was not, for the curious, it's someone who knows where you hurt. In the face of the badge, he frowned. "Plant that is," I assenti, in which it was delivered, laughing and government agencies. The one that got all the signatures on the right. Not the beautiful. I sell it. A woman in the long dress holding up a glass and mumbled something. I've heard the word process. Someone from the back said, "Let him speak." And then I saw the first sign that this wasn't going to end well. A man in gray, the rigid posture that I hadn't noticed it before. He made a gesture as small with a hand, a sign of the boss, without having to raise your voice. And then suddenly, one of the security guards came on the radio. At that time, I've got it. I did not come on a roll. I had gotten in a given area, and the land that has no owner. I walked up to the table where they had been for the flyers and the gifts, all the folders with logo. I pulled out a folder. Open. The pages are bright. The promises. The photos of people smiling in a swimming pool, which did not yet exist. And in the midst of a propaganda, I have seen a world map. A map of the terrain. I looked at it, and my heartbeat is different for the outline. I used to know from somewhere else. I knew it from the memory. I knew him from his childhood. I picked up the map and said, in a loud voice, "Who knows what was on that land before you?" Silence. There was a silence heavy. And then someone let out a small laugh as if I had told a joke and a bad thing. I took a deep breath. And it was then that I decided I wasn't going to reveal everything all at once. Because of that, I've learned only one thing. It does not enter a time in the minds of the people. She walks through the cracks for questions, for your ease. So I said, I'm telling you, I'm going to tell it the right way, from the very beginning, and in the end too. I turned and looked up the guy's name tag and said, the first thing that you need to know is that I have not come to ask for anything. I took a break. I have come to find. And before you dive into the turn of this story, I need to ask you for two things. So here it goes a long way, and I don't want to lose you in the middle of the road. Subscribe to my channel right now, because I'll tell you stories that no one has the guts to tell you, and you're going to want to be there for the next bomb to drop. And share this video with someone. You need to remember that dignity is not purchased. At times, we take a look at what it justice, when someone attempts to silence the truth. Now, breathe in. You're not ready to what I've seen and what I figured it out. I'm going to put it exactly where I am. The hall had a name for what seemed to be an exaggeration. The Gallery of the Imperial. I laughed on the inside when I read it. Because it seemed like the scene in the novel, it's just that. With the smell of real money. I had a table of hors d'oeuvres I don't know to pronounce it. I had a corner of it with a mock-up so big it looked like a miniature city. And there was a stage and small, with a microphone, waiting for the moment when the discourse of the visionary. I did not get there alone. I got a call. This is the detail that no one was expecting. I'm looking forward to the invitation printed on them, with my name on it, and with a QR code and everything else. But even so, in the face of the badge, and looked at me as if I had entered the wrong door in the life. Sir, what is the Lord's doing here? The question was the answer, the hard-coded. You are not supposed to be here. I smiled in a way that was calm, with that smile that I will work out. And when I do, I know that someone wants to take me out to the earnest. I was invited. He picked up my call. He spent the QR code on the device. You saw that it was the case. And even so, he did not return at that time. He held her for a few seconds at the most. The 2 seconds that it was a trick. And then came the sentence. The same one that I started telling you this. Here, this is not the place for us as well. And when he had said this, I didn't see it only society. I saw it as a strategy. Because I know this is the kind of game. First, they will fall. Once you speed, then you go off. And when you realize, you've been kicked out without having to be told. I saw the snare, because at that very moment, someone has called the face of the badge on the radio. Does it for me. It takes it for me. I've looked at the pros, guards changing of the position, and I realized they were going to get me out of there without drawing attention, without a scene, without a witness to it. I didn't talk to anybody important. So, I did what I always do on my channel when the story is trying to get out. I've created a loud sound, not the sound of shouting, the noise from the truth. I asked a question which is impossible to ignore. Where is the plant of the original project? In this question, turned out to be a nail in the floor. Suddenly, I was no longer on my good for the environment. It was about the environment to be appropriate under the law. And then it happened. The first thing is strange, and it was small, but that was just the start of the chaos. In the face of the badge, and looked at it for a second. Pro man, graying at the bottom. How to ask for permission, as if he didn't send anything there. And I think to myself, okay, so is there anyone here that is in charge? I need to find out who it is. In the evening, I had not even started, and I'm in the eye of the storm. I have to tell you something about me. You would understand the weight of it all. I wasn't born with a camera in his hand. I was born to the stage. I wasn't born with a voice. I started my channel because I've always been the guy who listens to the story. You know that one person who is your other to choose to let off steam? I was in this one. And then one day I realized that the stories told by the people I had, they were larger than they are. It was as if the world had a lot of official secrets that no one is posting it, which has been a secret for me that I was since I was a child. A place for you, a plot of land, a piece of city that I've always felt as if he were my own, not in the sense of ownership and belonging. When I was growing up, my mom would take me to a place that is called the Get the Sun. It was not pretty. It wasn't Instagram-oval. It was a simple one. It was sad. He was full of life. I had Miss Canthus. It was making the cake and passed out laughing in the neighbors when it was difficult. He had his organization. They repaired to the radio is old, and you would swear that the sound of it was that. I had all the kids running around in the mud making football better, and had a wall the words painted, here in the US that protects us. I remember that phrase until now. Just one day, in the alley, and the sun was gone. It disappeared in a way that was quick, as if it had been erased with the eraser. They said that it was the work of the city. They said that it was requalification. They said that it was progress. And you're poor, you believe, because you don't have the energy to fight with the word to be beautiful. But I will never forget the contour of the place. Ever. And when I saw it on the map in the folder on the Lookout CambioDeVida, I have the same frame. He was of the same design, in the same cut. It was the same with wound makeup and luxury. And there, in the middle of the hall, I realized something else. I did not come alone to confront you a broker or arrogant. I had been stepping up to the nightmare of my childhood days. And now you are paying attention to this detail, because he had seen the key to the game. In the face of the badge, he began to treat me as a problem, but he didn't make a mistake. He called it the people like that. And when someone throws you in a class, it's because they think they already know your order. I just have one channel. I'll tell you stories. And I know that it is the person. The more dangerous it is, the more powerful. This is the one that has the story. So, I did what I do best. I've got to tell you. But I told you pros have. I told him for the right person. I looked the man in the gray in the background, and I walked up to him, as if nothing could stop me. In the face of the badge and tried to stop me with your body. I spoke low, only for it to touch me, and you become the protagonist of my next video. He stepped back. I've got the man, gray-haired, and said, "Are you legal?" He looked at me as if I was dirt. I'm a consultant. Consultant. This word which means I have, but it does not show up. I got out of the pocket a picture of the old, bent, and that I will carry in your wallet like a charm. A photo of the alley and the suns from when I was a kid. I showed it to him, and I said, "It has been. You know that, right?" He did not respond at the time, but his eyes, they faltered. And this is Vacilada. This was the second surprise of the night. He didn't know. I went back to close the model with a rapidly beating heart. I didn't want to shake. I didn't want to seem weak. I wanted everyone there to feel what I was feeling. The strange to realize that the reality in the back of a luxury it has the scent of something hidden from view. I picked up the photo from the old and spoke loudly, looking back at a group of investors who seemed to be important. Does anyone here recognize this place? No one answered. I went on. It was in the alley in the sun. Point CambioDeVida, right on top of it. Then there was the first attempt to discredibilize her. A guy wearing a suit and blue barked out a laugh and said, "Friend, this right here is the area that was bought many years ago. It's all cool." Cool. I smiled, but inside I felt a rage so clean that it looked like ice cubes. And I said, "So, can you show me the original sketch is approved? The time-stamped, the subscription-based, the chain of ownership." The blue suit flashed. The woman next to him lowered his cup, and in the face of the badge, he tried to cut. "Sir, I'm going to call the police." And that's when I threw out a sentence. The more dangerous the night. You can call it that. I want it too. The lounge has. Because the one who's wrong, he hates the police. Who's afraid of, he hates standing. If you want peace, not to tremble. I saw the fingers playing with the cell phone. I have seen many people creating secret. I saw so many people whispering, "This is going to give a crap." The party was reaching out to touch. I have not yet had found nothing. And now, before I continue, I want to extend an invitation for you, because this is one of those moments when the whole world's watching you have a story to tell. Comment below. Have you ever seen or experienced a situation in which someone has tried to humiliate you as if you were to go, and you're like? Or have you ever seen someone in a powerful trying to clear a place, a memory, and a community? I read the comment. I also use a comment to the build in the next video. And I can promise you that some of the stories that you have, they are the strongest of all of them. Now back to me, because that's when I said, call the police. Someone is there. She decided that it was time for me to speed up in the background, and I only noticed it when it was in the afternoon. For the man, gray-haired man, approached. Now that he was close to, too close. He said quietly, almost tenderly, let's talk outside. The out there. It wasn't an invitation. It was removed. I've looked at the pros too. They were ready to go. And this is what I've done. The most reckless one, and the most necessary part of my life, I removed the pocket. And an envelope is creased. An envelope is brown, the real world, and the old man, and put them on the top of the table, in white, on the side of the model. The contrast was so great that I felt as if I had put them on a piece of land in the middle of the river. I have spent a finger on stamps, old envelope, and it said, I brought you a plant that you don't want to be seen, and I have seen the first person to actually look pale. It was not the spell. He was a consultant. I'm going to confess something. I don't know exactly what was in that envelope, and I know it over the top. I know what you said to me, but I did not open it, because I was afraid of. The fear is real. I had received one envelope, 1 week before the email, without a return address. It is only with my name and the address of my studio, and when I opened the box, I felt the smell of old paper, and I saw, along with a handwritten note, if you go there, don't go there alone. And you can't rely on no man's suit and gray. Gray suit. That night, guess who was there? To the consultant. Gray suit is perfect. I swallowed dry. I went to hand in the bag and I felt the tip torn off, as if someone had opened it before. I'm dealing with is clean. And I said, this is the envelope, it came to me with no return address. The broker laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. I didn't say anything back. I just opened up the envelope. When I pulled out the paper, I felt that the whole world is approached by a half step. Curiosity is a habit. And for the elite, and when he feels the smell of a scandal, do you want to watch closely? I got to the first page. It was a copy of the plan, with a stamp, with a subscription, and with that, a date, old. It made me miss the ground. It was not a date. That was the name. Along the lines of technical director was a name that I used to know. A name I never expected to see you here. Year, in my last name. I listened to my heart and the inside of the top of my head. I looked at it again. Said, I have felt your hand get cold. And there you have it. A reminder to me. Went through like a knife, my father. My father disappeared when I was a kid. Didn't die with the problem. It was not the funeral. He was lost. My mother always changed the subject. I always said, one day you'll understand. I've looked at the pro paper, and I thought to myself, don't tell me. I raised my face slowly, and I saw my mother in my heart and mind. And it was at that second that I don't think that this story called to me. It wasn't just about the land. It was about me. The consultant, who is wearing a suit and a gray, took a step forward, and he said for the first time, and based on the urgency of evil in disguise, where did you get that from? I smiled without humor. Do you know where it is? And then, there was a third surprise. He tried to grab the paper out of my hand. Fast. Instinctive. As someone who tries to put out a fire with his hand. I pulled back and I said aloud, it's not the mountain. In the hall, the entire listen. And then it happened, the one thing that I will never forget. One woman, elegant, makeup perfect, looked to the paper, opened his eyes wide and said, that's old too. The former too. I saw the consultant who was trembling in the jaw, and I just realized that I already had in there, which is a type of power that I had never even tried. The power to scare away those who have always scared him in the other. I placed the paper on the table, one by one, as the one who sets up the puzzle in front of witnesses, I would say, and it showed. He was showing. 'Cause I know how it works when you accuse someone, yet powerful. They believe that no one is going to understand you. They believe in the rough, invest in confusion. So I've been teaching direct, almost cruel. Here's the original sketch. I have given the stamp. Here's the history of the land. I showed it to the registry. Here's to the boundary exactly. I showed it on the map. And then I got to the last sheet in the envelope. This is the sheet that had a title that made it in the neck from all over the world to hang. The notification of the irregularity and the preventive suspension. And I had a subscription. The signature of the official journal. I'm not going to tell you why, because that's the part we're still in the process. But it was true. And then, in the bottom of a sentence, the underlined word, the absence of the consent of the owner, and the indication of the omission of a documentary. I took a deep breath and said, "In Portuguese, of course, you are at the top of the pump." The spell was read. The investor is in the blue suit turned deathly pale. The consultant came to a standstill as I was figuring out a plan B in seconds. And it was there that he tried to change the game. He pointed at me and said, loudly, pro salon full, "This guy has a channel. It either clicks of the mouse. He wants to show." I smiled. I love it when they try me out, because I prepare for it. I told him, looking around, "Yeah, I have a pause. And I also have a question." A pause. If that's what it's all cool, why are you so afraid of a screen? Silence. End of the confession, when no one has the answer. An investor with more and more old, with the face of one who has seen it all and said, "You're saying that it can be attached?" I assenti. "You can." He opened his eyes. "And the contract of sale?" I looked at the model and said, "Can you turn in your paper?" And then there was the fourth of a surprise, and it was for sale. A guy from the staff came up to me with a bag. "You opened it, and you took it out from the inside of a document to the official." He turned pro as a consultant. The consultant has read, and his face fell. He tried to hide it, but he had just received confirmation that right there, in the event, that something big was about to explode. And it was at that moment that I realized, I couldn't appear at all. And since they were already trying to run before I could speak. But I didn't come to watch for the leak. I came to pull out the truth by the collar. The consultant made a gesture, discreet, and in the face of the badge, he spoke into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will have a small window of time. Range. This word means we're going to try to control the damage." The lights in the hall subsided a little bit. The music went up a little bit, and all of a sudden, people started to move. Not as a party, but as an escape. "Investors coming," the people whisper. The cell phone in your ear. And I stood there, still holding on to the paper as if it were a weapon. It was then that a hand touched my arm. I turned around, ready to fight, and I saw a woman in a simple uniform, maid, her eyes tired but steady. She spoke quietly in a hurry. "You're the one in the channel, do you?" I assenti. She swallowed. "It is I who have sent in the envelope." I felt the ground turn around. "Do you?" She looked at the prose side, like those who are afraid to be seen. "Hello, my name is Her. I've been working here. I've cleaned up. I'm listening." I felt a chill. "Why in the world is this? Those who clean up the dirt you see on the heels of the whole world," she went on. "I met him in the alley and the sun." My heart squeezed. "Have you met him?" She nodded. "I used to live there." A pause. "And I know why it's over." I felt like my voice fails. "Why is that so?" She bit her lip, holding on to cry, and let go of the sentence. I broke down on the inside. "Why would someone put fire to it?" I was out of breath. She added quickly, "There was an accident. It was not too short. It was not the cylinder." I could feel the anger rise up. I thought back to my childhood. The phrase on the wall, "Now, here in the US that protects us," and the thought of that place, on fire. I closed my eyes for half a second. When I first opened it, she was shaking. They said they were going to solve. They decided to burning out. Once you have come up with a paper and a stamp, and who hasn't accepted it, it disappeared from the list. It disappeared from the list. I've looked at the pros lounge, laughing in suits, for the cup, and I felt a strange thing. A sadness so great that it seemed to be heavier than in anger. Because I've always thought that to get to the sun he had been removed. No, she had also been removed. And then I was reminded of the ticket is, don't trust anyone in a suit of gray. She squeezed my arm. They are going to try to be silent, and I'm not talking about the comments. I swallow dry. And before I continue, I need to ask you something, because I do know what I'm saying here to hurt a lot of people. Comment below if you've seen the progress that looks cute on the outside, but it hides something in a dirty bottom. Do you know something of the history of the neighborhood removed from community, off, the people down on the way out? I want to read it. I want you to understand. And I want you to take it out with you. Because from here on, what I found was not only a criminal offense, it was a chain. I'm in the middle of it. In the evening I was fleeing towards. I could feel it. It was as if the whole were trying to feign normalcy, but the ground had cracked. The consultant came to me again, this time without the mask. His voice was low, but it's the poison. It was clear to me. You're doing it in a theater. I smiled at the song. And you're afraid of the public. He took a step closer. You don't know who you're fidgeting. I looked it right in the eye out of him, and I said to him, I know exactly, and that's why I'm here. Then he let go, how to play a stone in the water. Your father found it. I felt my body lock up. The word father was a bit weird when it comes from somebody you should get to know her story. I swallowed dry. What did you say? He tilted his head with a smile. Little one. You heard me. I felt a strong desire to grab hold of the collar of it. I felt like crying, but I took a breath. Because I've learned one thing in my channel. When the enemy wants to get you out of your control, it gives you an emotional trigger. And he got it right. But I did not give up the pleasure. I pretended to be calm. You met my father? He shrugged. Let's say that you and I have met many people who knew him not. I have seen the thread is hidden in the say. And then he said the phrase the more terrifying for that night. You have stories that you have not been asked for stories to be told. I got close enough to him to feel my breath, and I said, so why is it that you're trying to prevent? Because of a history that never hurt no one. No need to hide it. He was serious, and I think that if I had pressed the right place. He gave a half smile and said, do you want to know the truth about your father's business? I didn't say anything back. My heart answered for me. He went on to say, so it is to play with the big thing. I said out loud, tell me where you are. He looked at the prose side and said, you're not ready. And then he walked away, like the one who leaves it on a bait on the ground and waiting for you to bite into. I stood there wanting to run after him, but I knew that this was what he wanted me to take it to a corner and without a witness. So I did what I always do when in the story it tries to pull me pro the dark. I call for light. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and started to record. Not on the face of it, in the room next door, the model of the paper. And I said to the camera and to the one who was in the back, you heard him, right? Did he know my father as well? And he's trying to shut me up. The advisor has stopped, because now it was no more conversation to be private. Now it was a narrative to the public. From this point on, the stories are dangerous, and I need you by my side if you subscribe to the channel now, not once, right now. Because someday, this is a video to disappear. If I will not be able to proceed, you are subscribed to receive and follow. You become a witness to it. You become a part of. And when there's a witness, it's much more difficult to erase someone else. Seriously, if you sign up. Now back to me, because the next detail that I didn't tell it to anyone without making them before. She pulled me by the arm again in a hurry. I know. I looked at her suspiciously. Go where? She swallowed. You know where they are hiding things. Do you understand me? I'm looking forward to a release from the restaurants, hors d'oeuvres, and a champagne. And a member of the cleaning was taking me to a place that is not supposed to be on the map. I did it. And it was only then that I felt, for the first time, afraid of the truth. Not afraid of the embarrassment, the fear of not coming back. But I have been. We went through a corridor to the side, away from the main dining room. In the light, it was cold, sad. The sound of the party was far away, as if he were in another world. She stopped at a port of service. It opened with a small key, and then we went down the stairs. The air had changed. It was wet. The smell of paper and dust and sort of metal. We got into a narrow aisle. I've looked at the ceiling, and I saw the camera. The camera's small. I pointed. She said, is that we're not connected to it? How do you know? She pointed to a small light go off. I clean it every day, and that light will never turn on. I swallow dry. We arrived in the basement, and when I say to the basement, it's not a metaphor. It was an underground space with shelves, boxes, and folders, as it is a hidden file. Only in this hole does not exist in the future, does not exist in the project. There was nobody. She opened the top drawer and pulled out a bundle of papers. This is what they are called passive liability, as if the lives in turn the worksheet. She handed me a piece of paper. I read it, and I felt my stomach turn over. It was a list of names, and in the end, notes. Accepted, declined, urged, issue, fix, to solve for. I've seen it a name circled in red, last name, year. I felt my hands swarm, and I said, This is this. She said, it's your father. I didn't have the voice for it. And then it happened. The thing going on that night. The door to the basement, in the back, and made a noise, as if someone had touched. She froze. I heard footsteps in the hallway. The steps are slow, measured. The steps for those who are not lost. The steps of the one who has come to see you. I looked at her, and she was wearing white. She said, They couldn't know that. I have brought unto thee. I felt the blood run cold. I've searched for a way out. He had not the window. I had no door, just for the stairs, and the footsteps getting closer. And then there was the fifth, to my surprise. And it was one of the most sinister, because it looked like a scene from the movie. It was real life. The lights in the hallway flickered, at a time, both of them, on and off. I was in the dark, holding on for a list of the names of my father's house, and I heard the voice of the advisor, the well-nigh to the gate, saying, I told you, you was ready to go. I'm not going to lie to you. I found out that there was going to finish it. I felt like I was going to be off on the way to the alley, and the sun went dark. But sometimes, it have a kind of cruel irony. In the dark, she pulled me to the back of a bookcase. She put her finger in her mouth, asking for silence. My heart felt like a drum. I heard the door open, the sound of the hinge. It was slow, as if time had decided to torture. The light of the cell phone lit up. The Spirit of God swept through the basement. I've seen that the beam is passing through the place where I was just seconds before. I held his breath. And then I heard a consultant and talking to someone. It's here. I want to get that sorted with no fuss, no noise at all. I heard someone's voice, thick. And the girl, the advisor replied without a moment's hesitation. The after that. The word, in that context, it was a bottomless pit. I feel a rage so powerful that it gave me clarity. I couldn't leave her there. I couldn't let the story die in the basement. And that's when I did something I have never done before in a video. I turned the mic on my phone and I started a live stream. Yes, in the basement, in the dark, people in the outside world. I pressed the button. The screen flashed, the living one. And I said softly, just enough for the camera to pick up and enough for them to hear if you arrive by. I'm in the basement, hidden from the Enterprise viewpoint Bella Vita. You have your documents right here. It has the list of names on it, and the general of the suit, Gray's trying to shut me up. The transmission has started to rise. Only a few people in the beginning, then another, and more. And then I heard it up there, far, far away. There is a noise that is different. About us. People screaming. The people calling him to safety. Because they live. That is the kind of thing that breaks up the control. The consultant was angry with them. I heard him say, off that. He began his search. In the light of the mobile phone, it has swept through the stands. I had a second of courage to be work. I walked out of the back of the bookcase and picked up the hand with the cell phone video and pointing to it. I said, hi. I live for it. Talking with my father in front of the whole world. He hangs up. The man with the deep voice fell back a step. And in that moment, I saw the consultant for the first time, without being able to. He was just a man. A man's fear of the camera. He tried to move forward. But then, there was the Friday, however, the most unexpected. The door to the cellar opened again, now with a rush, and went in with a group. It was not safe. There were people in the room. Private equity investors, a lawyer, and to be a police officer. Yes, someone had called them. And to live going on, they have come from. The consultant tried to smile, but his smile died. The lawyer looked over the documents, which are in the list, and she said, "It's tragic." The police officer said, "Who authorized this file?" The consultant tried to speak, but he couldn't. I looked at the camera, and I took a deep breath. Comment below note, if you find that the truth can allow you to put yourself at risk, you would even like this. Or do you keep to protect himself? I want to read your response, because I'm going to have to tell you, the truth has a price, and I paid for them. And to those who had paid it with me, it wasn't just me, it was her. And what happened to her after that, it was the most unfair of all. What happened after that first night, that was quick. It was a string of days that seemed like months ago. With the launch of On the Lookout, CambioDeVida has been suspended. The news story went. We invented the release. We tried to paint it as an opportunist. Many people have tried to buy me. Yes, tried it. Have you had a proposal from user-friendly? Have you had a threat in disguise? Had an anonymous message saying, "You don't know where you're getting yourself into." And it was a thing. She was fired from it. On the following day. No other explanation. No right at all. When she told me, her voice was broken. She said, "I knew it was going to happen, but I did it anyway. I'm never going to forget that." Because there's people who don't have money, you do not have the power, you do not have a lawyer, and yet you choose to be now. I made a promise to her that I wasn't going to let it die. And then, a week later, I received a second envelope. At this time, with a return address, a name that made my stomach sink. Registrar's office said and do. I started with a handshaking. Inside was a document of the original, not a copy, with a seal, signature-based authentication. And it was a letter, written by hand. The letter, it seemed familiar. I read the first line, and the world was gone for 2 seconds. "Son, when it came to you, it's because I've failed to come back again." I sat down. I have sworn. I have sat in. I could not stand to stay away. I've read the entire letter, with the throat burning. He had no graphic details, but the pain is enough that the whole group of the sonnet was not an accident. It was clean. It was pressure, was the erasing. And that's when he tried to stop it, when he gathered his papers, and when he was back in the real, he's become a target. And then there was the final piece of the puzzle that I didn't want it to be real. My father, who had been the technical director who assigned the plan of the original, not because it was on their side, but that's because he was trying to do the right thing for you. He tried to make a break for the scheme, by the way, is legal, and they paid the price. In the letter, he said that he handed a set of documents for a person you can trust. And who is this person? And years later, it passed to her and she passed it to me. That is, she did not set me apart, by the way. The story I chose. And then came the final blow, the last one a punch in the stomach. My father wrote the following. The man in the gray suit is not a consultant. He is the architect of the silence, and he's going to give you 2 things, money and fear. I closed my eyes. The architect of the silence. I was reminded of the look of it. As he spoke, you have stories that are not meant to be told. And I realized he wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of what I might ignite. In the letter, my father has left him in a statement. If you want to finish it for real, look up the registration number 3189 and read the name of the owner of the land. I've tried. And when I saw it on the record, 3189, and I felt my entire body shiver. Because that is the true owner of the land. Owner, legal owner, which is never sold. And the owner, that is, they have tried to erase it, wasn't a business. It was not an orange. It was not to be a stranger. It was a pool, with a name that didn't hurt and healed at the same time, an association of the residents of the alley and the sun. Do you understand me? The one to the floor, it wasn't the one. The one to the floor, it was the world that had lived there, and they tried to sell it as if it were theirs. And then, finally, I've got it for you, the consultant. I wanted so much to get me out of the living room, because I'm the only documents. I'm looking forward to a possible future. And it was then that I made the decision which changed it all. I wasn't going to win at it alone. I was going to make a return, with the help of justice, with the pressure of the public, with witnesses, and with the history of the whole subject. and the project was halted. And a few months later, he began a trade in real due to the lack of a lie, in order to fix what has been done to you. I'm not going to romanticize. It's not that easy. It's not fast. It is not a happy ending to the film. But do you know what has changed? The silence broke. And when the silence breaks, and the power switch on the go. And right now, I'm going to talk straight to you, looking you in the eye to anyone who's listening. If this is the story you picked it up, and if you feel angry, if you feel sadness, if you have had a desire to do something, don't let this turn only the emotion of the passenger. If you subscribe to the channel, because it's the next story that I'm telling you, you have a connection with it. And I'm not talking about the ongoing, I'm talking about the real people that were still trying to erase the evidence. Leave your like, because it pushes the video for more people to see it. And when most people see is more and more difficult to choke. Share this video with someone who believes in righteousness and injustice, and one which has already been referred to as people like that. I want to let the sentence die. I want us to go and bury this kind of disregard for the truth. Comment below a particular thing, where in the world you're watching from, and what's the name of the district or place in your city. Do you think that it has already been cleared or hidden? I want to map this out for you. I want to transform to comment on the investigation. Activate the bell so you won't miss out on the next chapters of this book. Why has the issue that some of you, but it does not add up when there are people waiting for you. And to wrap this up, I love you. And I promised that I was going to give everything away at the end. So, here's the last surprise, is that it changes the meaning of the first sentence. You know, when the guy said, "Here, this is not the place for us as well," he was right. Only you and your like, it wasn't me. And your like, it was we who do not accept the silence. Some people just don't buy the lie beautiful. People who looks at the luxury and the question, who will pay the price? And if you're here, you're like. Right now you have a history of showing up on your screen. Click to watch it now. And I have a warning. It starts with a promise. And it ends with the fact that no one has had the courage to say it out loud. There you go. I'll wait for you in the next video.